I'm Johnny Rowland, your host of the Shooting Show, and welcome to this week's program, friends. We're here, it's a cloudy sky. There are showers around us. Still a great day to be out shooting, a beautiful fall day. You can see the green around us here. We're still in summer here in Louisiana. I know a lot of you have already had snow, especially up in the higher elevations, but let me tell you what, somebody's got to live in those cold places, if you know what I'm saying. Anyway, it's a great day to be out shooting, good day to be outdoors, and you'll notice that I have the, this is the G3. We got this from Century International, and now there are a number of these guns out there. There's another gun that they're showing called the CETME, and that's the original Spanish version. The Spanish gun was the ancestor to the G3. In fact, I don't really know hardly what the differences are except for the wooden furniture on the CETME. Very fine guns, as is the G3, and of course you've seen the FAL as well as the M1A, other guns like that. There's a reason we're showing this week. We have a black powder piece we're going to do in a few minutes, but friends, it's important. Right now there is a bill that has been passed by the United States Senate. It's a defense authorization bill. We've been talking about this the last few weeks on our radio program. I think we've mentioned it here as well. But what this bill has is a provision that would allow the federales to come to your home and get whatever gun you had that was ever owned by the U.S. government. Talking about your M1, the M1 carbine, a 1911 pistol that was sold as government surplus, it would get the 1903 Springfields and others. It would get Jeeps, it would get clothing, it would get even the webs to carry gear in the woods with. This is a very bad piece of legislation, and it's going to go to committee. It has not gone to the House yet, but you need to call your senator and tell them that we want this very bad piece of confiscation legislation taken out of this bill. It is indeed very, very bad. Incidentally, we heard this week that the airline pilots might go on strike if they're not allowed to be armed. And remember, the anti-gun people, this is such a, if they see a pilot with a handgun or a shotgun, something like that, they're going to say, the passengers are going to say, wait a minute, I could do that. And you know what? They're right. The passengers can do it. We as free Americans have the right to be armed. We have the right of self-defense. And I tell you what, in the evil United Nations, that's the nicest thing I can say about them, the evil United Nations. This week, Syria, which has been known in the past for harboring terrorists and supporting terrorist organizations, guess what? Syria has been voted on to the Security Council, the most powerful position, the most powerful group inside the entire evil United Nations. Now Syria has a vote equal to ours. But you know what? Syria doesn't pay 25% of the evil United Nations budget like we do as Americans. I'll tell you what, friends, it is a serious situation with the evil UN. We've got to get ourselves out of the evil United Nations. We have to. Because if we don't, one day, all our military, all our National Guard forces will be turned over to that evil organization. And then when enough people, enough enemies of ours get on that Security Council, you know what they're going to say? They're going to say, hey, Americans, we need to pick up those guns you got. You're going to have to become a subordinate to this world government body. And friends, there's a lot of us that are just not going to go for it. We're not going for it now. Let's get out now while we still can. We do have a great show for you. Please contact your representative, and I hope the Pilots Union has some success on carrying guns on airplanes, because you know what? If those pilots had been armed on September 11, you know what? 6,000 people wouldn't be dead in New York City. Those buildings still be standing. The Pentagon would still be intact. But they weren't, and the disaster happened. And I tell you what, we as citizens need to be vigilant. We need to be aware that our own country, we've been saying this for several years now, our own country has, with the porous borders that the last administration allowed the sorry Democrats, let so many people through because they wanted those votes. Yeah, they, in the quest of power, they have damaged so much our own country. Well, friends, with these thoughts in mind, let's take our G3 and let's get another shooting show underway. Yeah, we got a volunteer water bottle over here. Now, friends, this 308 and this G3 works pretty well on those water bottles, about as well as our 460, huh? Well, I don't mind getting wet.
Stay tuned for more of the Shootin' Show after these important messages.
The Shootin' Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or TV station.
Friends, this is the new Georgia Arms 20th anniversary catalog. Of course, has a memorial there to our good friend Jim Clark there on the cover. This is a terrific catalog from the finest ammunition maker in the United States. They have all kinds of great prices on all sorts of ammunition: 243 Winchester, 270s, 7.62 by 39 Russian, all kinds of great stuff. They've even got 308 tracers, 30-06 tracers, all kinds of neat stuff here in this great new Georgia Arms catalog. They have components if you want to load your own ammo, and look here, we've got the Shooting Show and our new 460 Rowland kit on sale as well. Georgia Arms has the best prices for custom grade ammunition that I'm aware of in the United States, and guess what else? They're helping to support our Shooting Show. Friends, give them a call today. Free phone call, free catalog, 1-800-624-6861, 1-800-624-6861, Georgia Arms, and please remember to tell them that you heard it and saw it here on our program. Ladies and gentlemen, this young man here actually probably favors me a little bit. His name's Johnny Rowland too. This is my son Johnny, and one of my two sons actually, and in fact he's football coach. He just got out of practice this afternoon, came out and joined us. But son, we've got this is what? Tell us what this gun you're holding is.
Dad, this is a CVA inline muzzleloader. Mm-hmm. It is called the Hunterbolt 209 Magnum, because it can shoot the number 209 shotgun primers. Mm-hmm. It's got a synthetic stock mossy oak breakup camo package. Mm-hmm. It's got a nickel barrel. It's got. Now,
is that you say nickel? Is it nickel plated or is it stainless steel barrel?
No, it is nickel.
It's nickel plated.
It's actually a rough nickel is what it is.
Okay, well I actually prefer carbon steel, in this case nickel plate, to stainless. Stainless is okay. It's okay for barrels, but nickel is a really good option because they've all got to be clean. But go ahead, son. Now we put a scope on this gun a little earlier.
Right.
And this is a Simmons scope, but we'll look at the sights. It has fiber optic sights on this thing, which is a real good option. Because when you're going to hunt with them, I know it doesn't look like a Hawken or a traditional gun, but it's much more efficient in how it operates. And those sights are much easier seen in low light. But son, I know you wanted the see-through mounts in case
if I ever wanted to use the sights. And the sights are also the base and mounts for the scope is made by CVA for inline muzzleloader guns. And it works very well. You can look through and see your sights, and also look, of course, and look through your scope.
Well, we have a Simmons 3 to what?
3 to 9 by 40. It's the Pro Hunter model, and it's I tell you, for the money, Dad, it's very good.
Well, they are, and since this gun, obviously it's a muzzleloader. Now, he's not going to shoot thousands of rounds. This is a relatively inexpensive scope, and they're pretty good. But if you were going to shoot a 300 Win Mag or something, you might have chosen a different scope.
Well, sure. Like on my deer rifle, on my Browning deer rifle, I have a Leopold, you know.
But this gun is not going to take the pounding.
Right.
So this scope should be perfectly fine for what he has in mind, and it's got a good, clear field of view.
Dad, this gun was bought basically for 2 weeks of hunting. Our deer season is about to open a few weeks from now, and we get a week before the regular gun season, and we get the week after the regular gun season closes. And that's why I wanted this gun, was to do a little deer hunting with it, get a couple of weeks of extra deer hunting. Well, Dad, as you can see, this is the Hunter bolt action inline muzzleloader, and if you'll take a look, you just pull the bolt back, pull it back, and in this area right here is where you put your shotgun primer in the breech plug. Right there.
And we'll look at that in just a moment. Now then, son, of course, we got these great fiber optic sights, and friends, let me home in on that and see how bright those things are. Now, it's getting later in the afternoon. It's overcast anyway. And you see that? Those are so bright. They really pick up light. Let's look back now. When we're looking, let's say we did have to use, if we have a real close animal, see how those sights stand out there? Look down through there. Easily seen, and certainly for this type of brush hunting in our area here, I really like the see-through mounts, because you see, when you're close on something, you may not be able to look through that scope. You can always drop down and check your sights out here. And of course, those fiber optics, for even late in the day, they're going to pick up a tremendous amount of light.
Well, Dad, let's bore sight this thing so we can shoot it.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take your bolt out. Of course, it's a new gun. Now then, we're going to take the breech plug out. And of course, this just slides in, and the tool fits in a slot here, just like that. And CVA supplied a tool to do this with. There you go. Get it in place. Now,
it should be it.
Once you loosen it, you can just take the tool. There you go. Go ahead and put it in.
There we go.
There we go. Now, friends, of course, the breech is clear now. You can see all the way down through the barrel. Now, what we've got is some red tape out here on this target at 25 yards. See that? So the way we're going to do this is we're going to locate that orange tape down through the bore, and then we're going to match it. In fact, we're going to sight it about 1 inch high at 25 yards. Remember, this is a black powder gun. Through the scope, through the crosshairs. So let's do that now. That's what we've done. We've got it on the sandbags here, and you'll see that orange tape is centered, looking right down the bore. See, there it is. It's right in the center. Now, what we want to do is we're going to adjust this scope so we can see. We've got to move that scope a little bit over. Let me adjust the focus on the camera so we can see this a little bit easier. Let's see. Now then, see, we got to move the scope a little bit over to the right, and it will be bore sighted. Of course, then once we start shooting the gun, then we'll have to make more adjustments. But this is a way to get going rapidly and getting the scope close to where the bullet is going to hit.
This tool was sent to me with the gun from CVA. You just simply put the primer down in where it's firmly seated. And you just stick it into the nipple area of the breech plug.
Get it in place.
and just slip it in firmly like that.
Just pull it out. Slide it off. Now what we're doing here, we're drying the bore. We're shooting several primers. It's certainly a modern gun, but we're going to dry the oil out of the bore. So notice we're using glasses and hearing protection, even when shooting the primers. Go ahead, son.
Ready?
See that flame up there? That's why we always wear shooting glasses. And of course, he'll take the tool there and get the spent primer out. No, this is not a rapid fire job, but none of the muzzle loaders are.
And as you can see, instead of using conventional powder grains, they now have what's called pellets. And it's very convenient and very fast. And we're going to shoot the maximum load of 150 grains, each one being 50 grains apiece.
That's what you're going to hunt with. So
right.
Go ahead.
So you drop black in first. Just drop one in there. 2 and 3.
Okay.
Then you take your 50 caliber hollow
this
point.
This is actually a 50 caliber jacketed hollow point with a skirt on it for obturation.
That's right. Minimum gas leakage. And just seat it. You got to make sure that it's fairly level.
All right, go ahead and set it on the ground.
All right.
There you go.
You just take it and you just push it in there. It's
start it in.
Like so. And you take your starter, push it in firmly. You take your ramrod that, of course, goes on the gun. And you just take it and you just push it down.
All the way.
All the way. And you'll feel it when it's firm.
Right.
When it seats firmly. And that's it.
And let us remind you, the last thing you put on is the percussion cap.
That's right.
The last thing. Well, son,
make sure safety's on.
Safety on, good. Let's see how it shoots.
All right. Man.
Son, did it have a little recoil? Did it have a little recoil?
Did it?
Off the bench is always tougher. And there is a good recoil pad on the gun. Now then, let's go up to the target. And of course, we know the gun's safe. It can only fire one time. It's open now. So let's go up and take a look and see just what our bore sighting. Let's see how accurate we were. Obviously, friends, that's a big old hole in it. Looks like a shotgun slug went through. He was aiming right here, and all he's got to do is move the scope a little bit over to the right, and he's off to a great start.
Stay tuned for more of the Shootin' Show after these important messages.
So, what are some of the anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment, anti-self-defense, gun-grabbing groups saying about the reasonable, common-sense proposal to allow pilots to carry firearms? Are they, in the wake of the murderous terrorism of September 11, finally getting wisdom? Are they realizing that in some circumstances gun might actually serve a good purpose, like killing terrorist hijackers trying to crash your plane into a building? Certainly you jest. In a statement of September 26th, Michael Barnes, president of the Brady Campaign to Prevent Gun Violence, says, "We understand the intense fears of airline pilots, passengers, and crew following the horrific hijackings, and we support doing everything we can to strengthen aircraft and airport security," end quote. But Barnes speaks with a forked tongue. His organization does not favor doing everything that can be done. He says he has serious concerns about proposals to arm airline pilots. Barnes asks, can we ensure that a weapon on an airplane will not fall into the wrong hands? Could firing the gun in a plane compromise its integrity, causing it to crash? Huh? What planet is Barnes living on? What greater compromise of a plane's integrity could occur than what happened on September 11 when terrorist hijackers caused these planes to be crashed, murdering thousands? Could any greater damage have been caused had the pilots and or passengers on these planes been armed? I don't think so. And of course, no one can ensure absolutely that the gun of a pilot or passenger might not fall into wrong hands. But one thing we do know for sure, all 4 of the crashed planes hijacked fell into the wrong hands, and none of the pilots or passengers on these planes were armed. Noting that safety begins with prevention, Barnes says, we need to make sure that armed terrorists are not able to board aircraft in the first place. Terrific. But how exactly are we to make sure this doesn't happen? Answer, we cannot make sure absolutely that this doesn't happen. So what happens when hijackers do get aboard a plane? Then what? What Barnes, blinded by his hatred of guns, doesn't seem to realize is that having armed pilots and or passengers on board a plane is prevention. It is a last line of defense to prevent hijackers from taking control of a plane. In an interview, Amy Stillwell, a spokesman for Barnes's group, says that one of the tangible things that can be done is, quote, requiring background checks on all gun sales to make sure you prevent terrorists from obtaining guns, end quote. When she is reminded that the terrorists of September 11 did not use guns and is asked if there should now be background checks for persons trying to buy box cutters, she says, well, they didn't use guns this time, but I think this is a time when people understand now more than ever the importance of something like background checks, end quote. Background checks. Does Stillwell really think that if the terrorists of September 11 had used guns, they would have obtained these weapons through channels that would have required a background check? She says, quote, I think this question draws attention to loopholes that exist in our system, and while there might always be an avenue for somebody intent on obtaining a gun to obtain one, there are many, many things you can do to prevent that from happening. It's important to do all we can, end quote. She adds that background checks are, quote, reasonable, common sense measures, end quote. But as previously noted, the gun haters at the Brady campaign to prevent gun violence do not want to do all we can to make flying safe. Not at all. They do not want to arm pilots and or passengers, a real, reasonable common sense measure. They do not want to close the legal loophole that has prevented this with tragic consequences. When told that many pilots believe that allowing them to be armed is the last line of defense against terrorist hijackers, Stillwell says, I guess that's their opinion. I don't necessarily agree with that. There are many, many risks to carrying a gun. You know we're not an organization that seeks to ban guns. Right. Except for their wanting to ban guns to be carried by pilots and or passengers, among other things. Stillwell is asked this: if you had been on one of those hijacked planes, would you not have wished that someone on your plane had had a gun? She replies, don't put those words in my mouth. Then she was asked, so would you not have wished that? She answers, we're not even talking about that. I think I've given you all that I can on this, end quote. The Brady campaign to prevent gun violence bills itself as an organization leading the fight to prevent gun violence, a group dedicated to creating an America free from gun violence where all Americans are safe at home, at school, at work, and in their communities, end quote. But with America under attack from terrorists, the Brady Bunch should be working to prevent plane violence to make Americans safe on airplanes. And one reasonable common sense measure to help do this is to allow pilots and or passengers carry firearms. And from Washington, this is Larry Pratt for Gun Owners of America.
Join Gun Owners of America. You can call them at 888-886-GUNS, 888-886-4867, or you can find them on the internet at gunowners.org. And now, friends, let's take a look at how the Clark-Ruger conversion shot from last week's program. Friends, see, we have your garden variety nickel here. Now look at this. This was a 5-shot group, 1-hole CCI mini group. See, that nickel covers that easily. Now we're out, I was shooting today at 25 yards. It'll do this at 50 yards. I had a low power scope, but let's go on down to another group. This was Lapua. I got 4 in 1 hole, and I had a flyer there. And see, it's well under that nickel. This was a CCI mini mag. Look at this. CCI mini mag, much smaller than the nickel right there. And these were some shots we'd fired earlier from another gun. Okay, obviously not a 22. But look at this. 5 in 1 hole, Lapua Dominator. Look at there. Is that something? In fact, you could cover that whole group with the head here on the coin. This gun will shoot under half-inch groups, 5 shots at 50 yards. It'll do it. And of course, we kind of had an impromptu target session here today, but just phenomenal performance from this great Ruger 1022 from Clark Custom Guns.
Stay tuned for more of the Shootin' Show after these important messages.
For folding stocks, for pistol grips, for regular stocks, for replacement stocks, for magazine extension tubes for your shotgun, for magazine replacement springs for your shotgun. How about the Executive Eye Scraper, the Executive Letter Opener, all from Choate Machine & Tool when you call for a free catalog. You can get the Executive Letter Opener, a multi-purpose tool, or the Executive Eye Scraper, a multi-purpose tool, for only your choice, only $2 when you call for a free Choate catalog. You can get both of them for $4, a $10 value. Friends, if you're a shooter or a gun owner, you need one of the Choate Machine & Tool Company catalogs. Call them today, 1-800-972-6390. In Ball Knob, Arkansas, they're helping to support our project. You need one of their catalogs. Again, 1-800-972-6390. And please remember to tell them that you saw it here on our show.
And now for our support group friends, we have Custom Leatherwork and Saddlery in Denham Springs, Louisiana, Brooks Communication in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Dennis Crocker Firearms Training and Grass Shooting Discipline Information in South Carolina, Gearlings Equipment Rentals in Southern California, and Mike and Sherry Harris Pilot Services and Consulting in South Carolina. Friends, thank you so much for being with us on this week's Shooting Show. We will see you on the next Shooting Show. And friends, our gospel show is coming up next. Please stay with us. It's a show you don't want to miss.